सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.
Bhakti presents The Gift of Desperation, a Bhakti recovery podcast. This is a 12-step based Bhakti-oriented space. Here we share our experience, strength, and hope in the spirit of recovery from addictions and associated behaviors. Welcome. Good morning. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, Jiva. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. This is Scott. Scott is one of my favorite people, actually, on the coast of on the East Coast of the U.S. Scott, I had the good fortune of being welcomed into his home, which is a great home. When I went to the Philly Ratha Yatra, Scott is a BRG member. He is a stellar BRG member who does service in the BRG. He's got an incredible story. Scott is one of the kindest people that I know. I love Scott. I wish he was living near me, actually, Scott, because I'd be like over for coffee like every day or something. We would definitely be hanging.
Yeah, totally.
And come a little closer to the mic.
Oh,
perhaps.
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that's good. No, great. Yeah. So Scott has a great story. Scott is a recovering alcoholic, recovering codependent, and he's got really good, strong 12-step recovery, and he is an aspiring devotee, a Bhakti yogi. And so that's your introduction, Scott.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jiva. I didn't want to, it's tough sometimes over Zoom with the talk over thing. You know what I mean? So yeah, thank you so much. You are one of my favorite people, because if you didn't, you and Nancy and all the people who created the Bhakti recovery group, if you didn't do that, I don't know where I'd be. Because if you're looking at that chair that's behind me right now, that chair is where, I was so depressed, I couldn't move. Like, I literally would come home from work on a weekend and I was so depressed, I would just go in that chair and I just sit there for the whole weekend, and like the whole weekend would transpire, and I just get ready for work on Monday and just keep going back. And so I'm so grateful that you created that, because I've said this before. AA taught me, AA saved my life, but Bhakti Yoga taught me how to live. And I did not know how to live. I did not know anything. I did not have a community. So when I got sober and I needed to build a life because my alcohol destroyed it, by my own actions, I destroyed my own life, that there was nowhere to turn to. And I was just so grateful that this community existed that was able to teach me things about myself, and that I was able to move forward in my recovery.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being a part of the community, because without you, we wouldn't have a community, right? This is like how it works. And, I think just starting the Bhakti recovery group was, for me, more of just like, it was really just important for me to have a space, and there wasn't, there was AA or NA, and which are my main programs, and Bhakti yoga, and there wasn't really a space for both. And a lot of people were like, "Hey, really cool, it should be great, or we should have something like that." And so I just did it. So it was like more of a selfish act. No,
yeah,
it's like I needed a space, so I created it because there wasn't one.
Yeah.
But anyway, So why don't you tell me? So let's talk briefly, typical AA experience, strength, and hope, how it was, how it is now. So how was it with your, how was your drinking, and how did you get to your bottom, and what happened?
So, for me, we talk a lot in Bhakti yoga about conditioning and the material world conditioning. And there's certain conditionings that I took from my parents, and there are other things that I completely rejected. So I rejected, they were the country club types. Not that they were I mean, very upper middle class, nothing, not like super wealthy, but very aspirational to be in that upper tier. Like they really cared about, you know, how they looked amongst the community. That was like a real big thing. Like how, you know, the flex, you know, they were real into that. And I was like, these people are losers and they all wear pink golf shirts. I was like, forget them. But the conditioning that I accepted was that the only way that you could be cool and the only way that you could relax and the only way that you could unwind was with a drink in your hand, and that there's no other way. And so at a very young age, I took that from my parents and I was like, okay, like this is the way. And slowly but surely, you know, it just really became part of my identity. When I was in high school, I went from like a really small school to a huge high school that had like 400 kids in my class. I went from like 20 kids in my class to 400 kids in my class.
What do you mean 400 kids in your class?
In my class, yeah.
How is that possible? You had one teacher for 400 kids?
A huge high school right around the corner from where I lived.
So that means you had like class A, B, C, D.
No, it's just like, I mean, like everyone just like went to different classes and stuff. But like when we took our high school graduation photo, there were people I didn't even see for 4 years. I'm like, how did I not see you? Like, I understand we weren't in a class together. That's okay. But how did I not see you? Like,
that's
literally
insane.
Like,
I've never heard of that before. I've never heard of a school that big before. Ever.
Oh yeah.
Well, I was always on the small bus to school anyway. So
yeah. Well, now they split it up. They actually built another high school in my school district. So yeah. So it's not as big as it was. But yeah, it was just crazy. So, you know, I dealt with that by drinking. Like I dealt with that pain, that anxiety, I have a major thing with social anxiety. One of the things that I didn't realize till I got sober. Like I just
remember telling me that
really bad. And it still continues. Like, you know, I still run into events and stuff like that where I have panic attacks and stuff. And I'm like, I gotta get out of here now. Yeah. I do the Irish goodbye thing where I leave.
The Irish goodbye. Is that what you call it? The Irish goodbye?
Yeah.
I love that.
You just like slowly slink away.
The Irish goodbye. I love that. Actually, when I used to go out to clubs and hang out and stuff, I would be like, I'm going to the bathroom. And then I'd just freaking disappear. I'd like go write like sad poetry somewhere. Like, oh my God, what a pathetic. Anyway, go ahead. So sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, so it's just, I dealt with all that by drinking, and like my friends like knew me as drunk boy, like cause I was like every opportunity to get drunk, I got drunk, you know, cause I just didn't want to deal with things. And again, like how I didn't want people to see the real me, like only wanted to see the, you know, the projection I showed for myself. You know, it's this wild, out of control guy. Cause really inside I was just like, you know, a hurting little boy, you know what I mean? So,
right.
So I mean that basically that pattern, as you know, you unlock in the 12 steps, is the pattern starts to take hold, and that moved into college. And I went to a military college. I was very interested in the military. My father was in the military, and I went and so I really wanted to go in the military, and it made my good qualities better. It made my bad qualities worse.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And
how is that? Just explain that. That's a really interesting statement.
So like the inner strength I had within myself in some way, like when I got sober and I was able to take a hard look in the mirror, like I was able to, sorry, my alarm's going off.
Oh, no worries.
No worries. Yeah. Okay, Google, stop.
Stop, Google.
Alarms and timers that are ringing.
I love it.
So embarrassing.
No, don't worry about it. You see,
it's 4:45 in the morning, so this is, you know.
Yeah, but, come on, cut the guy a break. Cut the guy the break, you know.
Yeah, so
sorry, go ahead. That's your regular time to wake up.
So it made my good qualities better. It made my bad qualities worse. And basically like an inner strength and an inner discipline that I had within myself, it manifested in that. But the
Okay.
shy, the social anxiety, all that stuff, especially the drinking and the using the drinking as a crutch when anything goes bad really took hold. Because now at this
Wow.
point, I'm old enough to legally drink. So I would go out to a bar and order beer by the pitcher. Like I never ordered
Wow.
by the glass, I ordered by the pitcher, and I would just sit there
So
and
did
just
I.
get annihilated. You know what I mean? And of course, you're 21 years old. I mean, nobody really cares. You know what I mean? So it was just one of those things where I really, really like, I have like this weird thing with it where I was able to find some things within myself that were really great, and some other things that really just kind of brought out the worst in me. But in essence, because as we'll get to when I first get into AA, that discipline and that ability to look yourself, take a hard look in the mirror and go,
Mhm.
yo, this isn't right. Like you need to
Right.
stand up for yourself. You know what I mean? And that came out during that time.
Did you find that military school also kind of intimidated your insecurities a little bit with a lot of the discipline, or was it more?
No, what it did is it shielded me, whereas I should have gone to a regular college and worked on my socialization. Because I think, but I mean, who knows what could have been, because I could have just gone and gotten drunk and got kicked out of college, gotten a DUI, you know what I mean? Or something crazy like that. So, I mean, who knows? I just probably would have, or been in like a lazy slob and just put on like 80 pounds or something like that. But, I think like in terms of socialization, I wouldn't have had as many social problems as I had later on down the road.
Were you shy as a kid? Were you like kind of a shy kid?
Yeah, a little bit. I was really picked on a lot as a kid. I don't know why. I think it's just because I'm an only child, and I probably didn't have things that, you know, kids who were getting picked on by their brothers and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like little boy Lord of the Flies type stuff. I just don't, you know, I don't really have like a lot of great memories from childhood and a lot of like childhood friends and stuff like that. Like I still have a couple really close friends from childhood, but in general, like I knew a lot. Most of the people I went to school with were way more social than I was. And I think I heard this statement. I've used it in meetings. I've heard this in your podcast before. It's like, I feel like everyone got the instruction manual but me. Like, I'm like, was I sick that day? Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't understand like why everyone is acting this way and I'm acting this way. And I'm all over here by myself, you know? Yeah.
You know
like
what,
when I went to AA for the first time, or like times, like I would just say, like, you know, you go into a meeting for the first time and you'd be like, hey, friend of Bill W. And they'd be like, yeah, and turn my back on me. I'm like, turn their back on me. I'm like, huh? Like, again, like, what am I, like a skunk or something? But that pattern happened constantly, and I would use alcohol to medicate that. And like, I don't know, it was just like some weird, you know, thing I had going on. But now that's the great thing about Bhakti Yoga is like, that's all gone now.
Like, it is all gone because you're fully accepted. Everybody, like,
exactly. But it's not only that,
our community, it, like, loves you. Like, I love you so much. You have absolutely no idea how much and I know for a fact that if we were in school together, I would have been hanging with you. I know.
Totally. We would have gone to some Sunday hardcore matinees.
Oh, totally. Totally.
Yeah. So, I mean, because
I didn't get the manual either, man. I missed it. I was like, I was giving that out. I was like, I don't know, somewhere in my ADHD world.
Yeah. I'm just like, what is wrong with me?
Nothing.
But it's all good. So, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, like when I look back on stuff, you know, when I look about like the pain and the sorrow and stuff like that, and I look at where I've come, like and here's the analogy I'm going to draw is like, I was in Northern Ireland. I'd gone on vacation. I was sober vacation 2019, I think it was. And so I love walking up mountains. So you know, if you go to mountains in America, most of the trails I go on are switchbacks where you go diagonally up diagonally up the mountain.
Okay.
So you go up on a slight incline, like on a zigzag pattern up the mountain. Yeah. But when I went to the UK, it was just a straight ascent. It was like one road going up, and it's like, okay, all right, we're going to do this. So I'm going up this mountain, and you know, I am a little overweight, and so I'm really struggling. And I turned around, and I was really thinking about going back down, but I didn't realize how far up the mountain I actually was. Like, so I'm walking up the mountain, and I'm like, I feel like I can't go on, but really I'm actually not that far from the top. And to me, it was the same thing. It was like, oh, you know, I'm not that far. Like, look at how far I've come. And that's the great thing about Bhakti Yoga, is that I look now and how far I've come. So like, I went to see Keshava Swami, sorry, last week, in ISKCON, New Jersey. I had never gone to that temple before. Did the social anxiety things start to pop up? Absolutely. But I went in there, and everybody treated me great, and I had a great time. And it was, you know, it was a very enlightening talk and stuff like that. So when I look at like where I was at that time, when I'm in my early teens and medicating with alcohol, and where I am now, it's like night and day. Like, I mean,
Wow.
and I just think about how much further I've come. So it's really, really great. Yeah.
So how did your life change when you first walked into the very first meeting, and what was your journey when you first came into the 12 steps? When I'm talking about the BRG, first the 12 steps.
So just to give you a little bit of background about my bottom. So 3 months before my bottom, my mother passed away, and I was drinking pretty much. I was basically, my days were spent every night. I would get home from work, and I would just make dinner and
pound down some beers.
Yeah, and drown some beers and pass out on the couch. And I had 2 alarm clocks because I missed like, came in late for work one day, and so I had to get a second alarm clock because I thought that was normal, you know. Also with the closet behind me is where I used to keep my emergency 30-pack, you know, for
30-pack.
Yeah, 30-pack. Yeah, I used to keep it right there, you know, for emergencies. You never know when you know, break glass, have beer, you know. So I mean, yeah, I'm hiding beer for myself. Really, is what it is.
That's
you know what I
insane.
mean? So yeah, so just the alcoholism insanity. So I basically went to a beer fest 3 months after my mom had passed away. And so for me, like, the grieving process, she was sick, and I accepted her passing, and she went in her sleep, and it was very peaceful. And my dad, the grief that he had, that is what I was not prepared for. I was not prepared for that at all. And
how
so,
far did you live away from your dad? Just out of curiosity.
And so I'm
in...
doing all these estate planning things I have no experience in. I'm doing all these, unlocking his bank accounts, trying to figure out where his money's at, and all this other stuff. And because it was just a mess, because he basically just completely shut down. And I had to, you know, you basically got, you know, when somebody's just laying on the floor and they're just dead weight, it was like that.
Wow.
And so,
how old was your dad at the time? How old was he at the time?
Let's see, it was 6 years ago, so he's 75.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So
Yeah.
he was an older man.
Yeah, so he was older, and it was just like,
I get it.
and I just couldn't deal with it. And at the same time, like, I owned my family's business, and that my grandfather started a long time ago. And
did your dad work for that business as well?
yeah,
or no?
so I bought it from him, and I was taking it over from him right as the bottom happened. So like, I have the pressure of that. And so it's like Krishna dumped a big old bucket of water on me on the police car. I did something I shouldn't have done, and I got arrested for that. Someone called the cops on me, thankfully, and got me arrested. I was really drunk. I went to a beer fest. Yeah, I went to a beer fest and got just total. I had a hangover for 3 days, just to give you an idea.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it was an epic. Well, it was an epic. It was actually quite sad because it went. I was
epically
just
sad.
Yeah, I just looked back at all my life, and I was just like, how did, you know, again, like the mountain analogy, like, how did I get this far? Like, what have I done? And I thought the only way out was, you know, drink yourself to death. Like that. I thought that was the only way out, you know? And when I was just on that hood of that police car, just Krista dumped a big old bucket of water on me and was like, hey, people care about you, you know,
get your shit together.
Get your shit together, son. And it was just like, oh, you know, and I'm just, that wasn't the first time I've been arrested. So I remember and I'm 40 years old. I'm in the back of this police car. It's all, in the back of a police car. It's not comfortable. And
No,
I'm like,
it's
how did
not.
I wind up here again? Cause it had been I guess it had been a long time since my last arrest. So I was like, how did I wind up here again? And I was just like, oh my God. And so I went to my first AA meeting, and that didn't go so well. I basically
Was it mandated, or did you just go voluntarily?
I just was like, I can't live like this anymore. I have to try this. And I was looking for every
Okay.
excuse for it to not
Not
work.
to go. Yes.
Yeah,
of
I'm
course.
looking like, I'm going to try this half-ass, and it's not going to work, and I'm going to be back drinking in a week. But for right now, we're just going to do this. So the first meeting.
Do you hear that fly in the background? There's a stupid fly in here. Do you hear it?
No.
Sorry, go ahead. He's so annoying. My ADHD is like, fly, it's like, sorry, go ahead.
So I went, my first meeting did not go well. And I was just like, well, I'm going to give this one more shot. So I went to an agnostic meeting, because the first meeting, they were really trying to shove the Jesus thing down my throat. And I was like, oh no, like I'm literally hanging on by my nails. Like,
and people are pushing Jesus on you, and you're like, what
and
the
it was just,
hell is going on here?
I couldn't, I couldn't get around like, and there were people who drank way more than I did. And I was like, what is going on here? I'm like, it just didn't make any sense to me. But one thing that did stand out from that meeting was that someone says, do you still have a job? And I was like, still have a job? Like, I just taken for granted that I had a job. You know what I mean?
I have a company, for Pete's sakes.
Yeah, like I didn't realize. I'm like, oh, you could lose everything through your addiction. It was like, it's just starting to unravel, things, and thinking I just been so wrapped up in my own, bullshit that I just couldn't have fathomed that I would have lost my job. And so went to that first meeting, but the second meeting I went to was an agnostic meeting, and these were all old timers except for me and this other guy. And he's a huge part of my story, because
this other guy,
okay. Because we came in around the same time. And I think within the first couple meetings, I realized that he was drunk in the meetings.
Wow.
And so the old timers were really great, because they were really teaching me that sobriety was possible. And they were really, really helpful to me. And they told me things like get a therapist, and, just little tips and tricks along the way. And they showed me, like, they all had normal lives and stuff. And it was like that thing that we were talking about, like with, you said, the selfish program, like, they're helping me and I'm helping them, because I'm able to remind them, because they hadn't had a newcomer in so long time. And they're helping me by how to navigate early sobriety and the challenges that come up, and the pink cloud and the depression and this, and, where to turn to. And I don't know, I feel like I'm drowning and stuff like that. And they were so helpful to me, to be able to pull me out of that space and to be able to show me that sobriety was possible. But to me, as I started to work, by the way? Oh, sorry, what was that?
When was this, by the way? Like,
this was in 2017.
Okay.
So, 2017, 2018. They showed me that sobriety was possible. And, but as I started to work the steps, and I had a great sponsor, he had this great saying. And, anytime I was really, really struggling, he'd say, remember your last 2 weeks drinking and your first 2 weeks sober, and that'll be enough to give you one more day. And I was like, oh, you're okay, so
say
right.
That again. Wait, say that again.
So yeah. So
say that again.
Remember your last 2 weeks drinking, or your he used to say last 2 weeks out there, because he worked both programs. He worked NA and AA.
And AA, yes.
He said, remember your last 2 weeks out there. Remember your first 2 weeks sober, and that'll be enough to keep you sober. And
that's gold. That's a nugget. That's a nug.
Yeah.
That's gold.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. And I love that.
Yeah. He was like a recovery all-star. I mean, he went to meetings every single day. Because after a while, I mean, I did the 90 and 90, but I didn't go every single day. Like I would go to like multiples on the weekends and stuff like that. So I was going like, I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then do, a couple on the weekends and stuff like that in the beginning. And then after a while, I mean, you just kind of get into your routine of going to meetings. And the agnostic thing, was really a great opportunity for me. And this sounds weird, but it was an opportunity for me to work on my spirituality on my own terms.
Well, see, it doesn't sound weird. This sounds exactly where, I mean, for me, it was the same thing. It was like, people told me before when I went to the meetings, like, take what you need and leave the rest.
Yes, 100%.
And I started going to meetings in the Midwest in Chicago, which are hugely in a predominantly Black neighborhood where my mother used to live. And the meetings there were very Baptist oriented. So people are like, who I'm, my higher power, I choose to call Jesus. And, this, thank God I didn't take that personally at all. I loved the holding on to a higher power until exactly like you said, until you get this time to actually understand who your higher power is. Because if you don't have that time, how are we going to feel comfortable?
Yeah, I think also working the steps after 3 months and not immediately was very helpful as well. Like,
yeah.
Just to, unfuck
There are
your
those
brain
old
for
school-
lack of a better word.
Oh my God. No, but totally. So many people start like immediately. Like, I don't think that would have worked for me. I also did 90-90 first before I started working the steps.
Yeah.
It was very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just, get past that initial thing. And then just kind of, started working the steps with him, and it was great. But I will say this, when I went to do step 4, I had to go in a cabin in the woods and no electricity and do step 4 because I just was not willing to do step 4. And step 4 is the inventory, if you don't know.
So you basically just like locked yourself in the cabin.
Yeah, I
in the
basically
woods
was
so
like,
that
I was like, I need to go away for a weekend and I need to lock myself with myself and unpack all this.
Good for
And
you.
it was very, very helpful. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then moved on. And then, year 1 comes. The first year was really great for me because I was really rediscovering myself. But at the same time, there was no connection and I didn't feel community in AA. Like I really didn't. Like I felt like a kindness and like a mentorship, but not like a real community of peers, if that makes sense.
It does make sense because I think a lot of meetings are like that. There are some meetings that are very tight, and then there are other meetings that aren't. And depending on where you are, of course, each meeting is different and each meeting has a different flavor.
Yeah. Yeah.
What were you told as far as the mentorship goes? What were you told in early recovery? Were you like, did you do what you were like, the 90-90 and this and that?
Yeah. I had guys screaming at me that I needed to show up on Sunday at this time. I couldn't have dinner with my family and stuff like that. And I was like, what? Like, no, like, I had enough sense to not listen to like some people. Cause I was going to meetings wherever, whenever, and I work in a, just outside of Philadelphia. So, I would go hit inner city meetings on my way home because it's like literally like right there. So like I would get, there's some hard recovery in Philadelphia.
Oh my God, I can imagine. Going to a meeting.
Yeah.
Are there any meetings on Kensington? Are there any meetings on Kensington?
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I know someone who goes out there and he starts meetings in Kensington. He goes in there.
Dude,
and he
when I come to visit you, I want to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really do. I want to go. I want to go to a meeting there. I want to keep it real.
It is it's a disgrace. It really is. The way that this fentanyl situation has been able to fester here in the United States is just ridiculous. And if you don't know what we're referring to, go on to YouTube and just type in the word Kensington. K-E-N.
And it'll come up.
Yeah. S-I Kensington. Yeah. Kensington. So yeah, and it's really heartbreaking fentanyl stuff, and just prepare yourself because it's really, really bad.
It is. And it's insane. It's actually like you think that you're watching
The Walking Dead for lack
Yeah,
of
you
a
think
better
you're
word.
watching The Walking Dead. It's
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
insane.
just people just everywhere, and
My heart
it's
breaks. My heart
Yep.
breaks when I see that,
Yeah.
in Germany and in Europe, there are places very similar. There've been like that for years, little areas of clusters of junkies. I mean, that was just from heroin, and now fentanyl, which is like a million times stronger. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I asked you what were you told and what you were doing. And, I think in AA or in a lot of 12-step programs, of course, like in any place, there's a lot of dogma and a lot of projection going on. Some people couldn't go home to their families because it made them insane. So everyone has to have, like we take, if we're in that space, we take what we can and we leave the rest. So
Yeah.
anyway, go ahead, because you had a good head on
So
your shoulders.
I had a home group, and I really like one of the great early things in recovery, the agnostic things, was rewriting the 12 steps, like with a sponsor. Like, you know what I mean? So you're not doing them, like, like I should drink and that's okay. Like that shouldn't be step one, yeah, like, but when it comes to like step 6, like I knew a lot of people in there who really had a hard time with defects of character. Like they really were like, there's nothing wrong with me. Why am I, why am I supposedly defective and stuff like that? And I think to some extent they kind of but if it bothers you that much, then yeah, why not rewrite it with a sponsor? I mean,
We'll just use other verbiage.
Work your own program, which is basically the freedom that the agnostic program gave me, was the ability to work your own program. But there aren't as many meetings in the agnostic space. There's a website called AA Agnostica, which is all the agnostic meetings. And so, you find yourself that you do have to go to those regular meetings.
Right.
But I just kind of bounced around a lot because, like I was talking about before, I never really felt like I had a home outside of that initial group. I never really felt like I had a home. And I was like, until I came to the BRG and really, I just happened to go to a codependence meeting that someone had started, and that really set me on that journey, because that was,
I remember.
Oh,
I remember you were like, "Oh my God, I'm codependent too."
I was like, one more. I'm like, I'm an ACA. I'm like, I feel like, you ever seen like those doctors who have all those letters after their names? I'm like, oh, come on. But yeah, I mean, really in early recovery was don't drink, don't think, go to meetings. And that's basically what I did. And I just was like a regular thing. And I'm someone who always likes variety and change. Like I kind of have my space where I like my routine, but really, like, I need to mix things up a lot. I can't stay.
Are you a little spectrumy?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I know.
Yeah, my
me.
My friend's a teacher. She's like, you're totally on the spectrum. Yeah.
Most of us alcoholics and addicts are in some way,
Oh, yeah.
And if not everybody, but I mean, some are more than others.
Yeah. So I mean, that really just kind of, and really working Russell Brand's book as a step manual was a fantastic. He has so many great pieces of wisdom in there, and it's funny. It's funny, and it's a little bit lighthearted way to look at the steps, is because I know it can, when we were working the ACA program, like it gets dour, and you can just really wind up. I felt myself turning towards a mode of resentment in a lot of the recovery workbooks, of just, why did this happen to me? And turning it towards the other person and not looking towards myself and my part in it, which is, I know, which is where my sponsor was really always perpetually having to rein
what's your
me
part?
in. Yeah, exactly. And just like, you got something to do with this too. There's a reason why you're here, so he was really, really great with that. But
that's really good, because that's all we can change, is it not?
Yeah.
I mean, being, I feel that I was really lucky to have good sponsors. Not all of them, but some of them. And one was a drill sergeant. She was a female drill sergeant.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, and she was like, "You're calling me at 5 o'clock in the morning," and I was like, "No, I'm not. I see absolutely no reason to be calling you at 5 in the morning." But anyway, she was very straightforward, nice woman, and it was always, "What's your part?" It's always, "What's your part in this? What is your part of this?" And if she didn't thump that into my head, I would also really, I don't think I ever played a victim, because I wasn't like, I don't think I was ever like, "Oh, why me?" I don't think that was my thing. I really just wanted to know the patterns. So that's what a sponsor's there for, to look at that 4-step and do that 5th step with you, to figure out what are the patterns, what causes you to act in a way, what your part was, right?
Yeah.
And to
And
nip it in the bud for the future,
and
and
once
to give it to God.
once I feel like I was able to unlock the pattern thing, once I saw the patterns, that
Right.
really helped me when it came to the codependency. Because I'll just give you like a little bit of background. Okay. So
Sure.
I'm an alcoholic with daddy issues. So
I love how you said that. I'm alcoholic with daddy issues.
so I was, I got, word that my father was really sick, and he had, I don't remember if it was pancreatic cancer or prostate
Jesus.
cancer. I forget, one of those two. I'm not a doctor. So I don't know which one it was, but he had some major surgery. And so I started going on my free time to Florida and going back and forth once a month. It's all my vacation time, just going to go spend time with him. And he was not supposed to drink again. He was not as bad as I was. I come from a long line of alcoholics.
Well, you're Irish and Italian,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, my Irish side is all like, it's literally generational alcoholics. Like, my grandfather was in AA. My great grandfather basically abandoned his family and to go get drunk. Like, it's just, it's one after another. And so,
But that was like super cliche. That was like, I'm sorry for every Irish person who's not an alcoholic. I don't want to put you all in one box, but I know a lot of Irish alcoholics.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it was, and you say that, but I mean, that's the great thing. Like, if you go in recovery and you want to go on vacation, if you go to places where there are
lots of alcoholics,
there's a great recovery community. So, I mean, when I went to Ireland for vacation, there's not as meetings as much as there are in the United States, but like, they're almost always at 6 o'clock. There's sometimes you can catch one at noon. There's hardly ever any in the morning, but you can go to any little town in Ireland and
there'll be an AA
meeting. And that's the great thing about, the recovery community, so that you never have to feel alone, no matter where in the world that you're at. So I went to, started unlocking those patterns, started going back and forth to Florida. And I remember the moment where he started drinking again. He had a non-alcoholic beer. And I was like, oh, here we go. I'm like, this is going. And sure enough, the next time I went back there, he's back to vodka. And so that was fine. He was never as bad as I was. Never, ever. I mean, he would get drunk, but he was like a 1 beer a day guy and 3 beers on the weekend kind of guy, or 3 vodkas on the week. But eventually the beer never sat with him because of the surgery. So he only wanted to drink straight vodka. And that's really when the problem started to happen. And he would go down there, and we'd have a caregiver for him, and he would send his caregiver away. This is the same pattern that happened over and over again. And then the falling would start happening. And when the falling happened, I'm going to get graphic here just to warn you. I ripped the skin off his arms because I tried to grab him. I grabbed him and I held him, and he was so frail that and dry because he wasn't drinking any water and stuff like that. I actually ripped the skin off his arms.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I know. And
never heard of anything like that.
Then the falling started to happen and all that stuff. So I would say by this time we're a couple years into this.
So you were living in Philly, and he was living in Florida.
In Florida, and I'm commuting.
So you'd have to drive every time he fell down and stuff like that.
But I had the inside number of the police station and stuff, and I have 2 cousins that live not that far away from him. So one time I had to call them, and they had to get the police to come get him. And then the other time I like what I would just call them and just say, hey, my father fell, and they'd be like, okay, we'll get to him when we can. And I'm like, okay, that's
Oh
fine.
my God.
So, but then the other thing was like, he would just manipulate me. So he would make me go to the bar. Like, I really have a hard time going to the bar. Like,
And you were sober.
yeah,
You'd
I'm
be
sober,
at this
and I have
time.
to sit
Okay.
at the bar. Like, I don't want to sit at the bar. Like, I don't go to restaurants unless I'm with a bunch of sober people. Like, that just doesn't happen. You know, I have one of my friends, and he's not an alcoholic at all. He's a normie, but he likes to go to this brewery, and I don't see him as much because he goes to this brewery with a bunch of other people. And, you know, I can't do that. Like, that's just not in the cards. Like, I tried a couple times. I'm like, the smell of the beer was like, oh no, like, this is not a good space. And super supportive, like, never, you know what I mean? There was never any like, you know, FUs, and we still talk all the time. We still talk once a week and stuff like that. But as I've gotten deeper in sobriety, and as he's, you know, gone his path, it just kind of diverts, and that's life,
Yeah,
you
of
know?
course. Yeah,
So,
of course.
so yeah, the codependency thing. And so he's manipulating me. He's just totally violating the red lines I'm setting for myself, but not expressing. So I'm setting these red lines. He's breaking them. I'm not going to let this happen again. It happens again. And at the same time, like around this time, because everything's just a bit of a fog because I was in such a bad state here. That's about when I started coming to the BRG. So I came to the BRG before I ever, like, I had been reading the Gita and listening to Wisdom of the Sages, I think for like a year before I even came to my first BRG meeting. So, I think, yeah, it was probably like around 2021 this is really spiraling out of control now. Like,
Right.
this is going on for years, and I've just allowed this to take over. And even when COVID, when no one's traveling, like, I'm going down on empty planes and stuff like that. Like, I'm still going back and forth, you know, back and forth to Florida. And, you know, whenever I can, because sometimes the business wouldn't allow me to get down there, but in general, I'd go down there pretty frequently. And then just one day I happened into a CODA meeting, and the CODA meeting really just kind of changed my life. Reading from Codependency No More. And
At
that
the BRG.
was, yeah, at the BRG. And it was Melanie Beattie's book called Codependency No More. And it talks about the codependency types. And it was Caretaker. And it was just like, who is this person? Why have they put all of my thoughts into this book? Because
my thoughts, behaviors,
yes,
and
all my
insecurities
thoughts
are all in there.
How did you extract them all and put them in a book and sell it?
I want my
not
profit
fair.
from that, please. You've just earned money on my brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so the BRG was really, and also as I'm going deeper into spirituality, I'm getting further away from the agnostic group at this time. And I'm really kind of finding my tribe. I've heard you talk about it all the time, like find your tribe. And so I'm finding my tribe. And then in last year was the hard boundary. I set a hard boundary last year. I expressed my concern to my dad 3 times because he's 80 years old now. So I tell him 3 times, this is what's going to happen if you keep doing this. And he did it. And I have not seen him in a year and a half. So, like,
wow,
it's just, you know, but once I set that boundary, the liberatedness, if that's a word, liberatedness.
Well, it is now.
I felt completely liberated. Like, I was like, oh, this is just now. And I was able to open myself up so much more. I mean, and in this time frame of going through this process and getting further into the spirituality, and then last year you came to the Rath Yatra at Philly, and then I met another devotee.
Was it last year or was it a year?
Yeah, I think it was
2 years ago.
it was last year. Yeah, last year. And then
no, it was 2 years ago. It couldn't have been last year.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was
1 year. But
I don't know, whatever. Anyway,
my brain cells are gone.
could be mine too. I'm like, yeah, it was 2 years
Yeah,
ago. It's like,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not a very reliable source.
but so we and then I started going to the temple. And when I started going to the temple and I started having I chair the Sunday evening meeting, Sunday 7 p.m. Eastern, the Bhakti Codependence Anonymous meeting. So I chair that meeting, and then going to the temple has been finding my tribe. And it's just been absolutely magical. One of the major realizations that I've had is that, and it actually happened a little bit before then, that got me to open my heart that I was able to be in this situation to begin with, was I went to the Wisdom of the Sages retreat. And by the way, I want to put this on the record. Raghu and Kastuba, I cannot thank you enough for creating Wisdom of the Sages, creating the community. And it's just been totally life-changing because, like I said, I was just in such a bad spot when that started. I was, as soon as he was on Rogan, I was listening the next week. So whenever, I guess around March of 2020, when everything started blowing up.
So you heard of Wisdom of the Sages from Joe Rogan?
Yeah. Because I've been in the shelter. I saw Shelter in 95. So I was in what Raghu was doing, and I'd always been interested. It was like he dropped off the hardcore radar, because he went into the yoga space,
Right.
And so I was always interested in what he was doing. And when I saw Raghunath Kappa, I was like, is that Ray from Youth of Today? And I was like,
yeah, cool.
I was like, awesome. But yeah, and the community and the ability, because I'm not the kind of person who could just roll into a temple. Like, that's just not me. Like, with the social anxiety stuff, it's just not me at all. And so
I remember when you went to the Wisdom of the Sages retreat. I remember we talked before then, and how intimidated you kind of were.
Oh, I was totally
go into
intimidated.
That space.
I was totally intimidated, and I was just like, I remember it was Radhanath Swami on the roof of the Bhakti Center, and I get done, and that was my first kirtan. So, and there, I went to the devotee next to me. I was like, was that a kirtan? I don't, but it was just totally, but they created this safe space for me to, to be able and just felt totally comfortable. And by the second day, I felt like I had like a whole new family. Totally. But the main realization that I had was that Raghu was like, you got to pull all three carts. If you've never done this before, you got to pull all three carts. And if you don't know what we're talking about, the Rath Yatra is this, deities are pulled on a cart. Three deities are pulled on three carts down New York City, down this big street in New York City. I forget which avenue it is. It's on its way to Washington Square Park. So
it's probably Fifth.
Yeah, Fifth Avenue. Yeah, that's right. So, so I'm pulling on the Subhadra's cart, which is the third cart, and there weren't as many people on that cart as there were on the other ones. So everyone pulling that is really struggling, and the devotee taps me on the shoulder and says, "Hey man, he's pulling you." And that was like a light bulb shattered. I mean, I can't begin to tell me. So step 3 is turn our will over to the care of God as we understand him. And so that was the first opportunity where I had realized that I had been the one who'd been fighting God all along, that I had been the one who was, he was pulling me, but I was the one who was fighting. And that I was the one who needed to let go, because I was like, where are you, God? I can't find you, and all this stuff. And so for me, that was the beginning, and that I was able to have that freedom. Now I finally feel somewhat liberated. I feel a connection that I had never felt before. And it was at that thing. And yeah, it was amazing how much that social anxiety had been holding me back from something like that for so long. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, it was just magical, really. I mean, I hadn't, and it was basically like the first time, like, my prayers had really been answered, because I'd just been asking, Krishna, for so long, like, that gift of desperation that I hear you talk about on the podcast. Yeah. And I just been, like, where are you? I just don't understand. And I think the problem was, and I use this analogy a lot, is that, I have a toolbox. I have one tool in that toolbox, and that's a chainsaw. And once I get more,
I thought you were going to say a hammer.
Yeah, a hammer or a chainsaw.
Chainsaw.
There's only
One or the
a
other.
chainsaw. I'm cutting everything. You know what I mean? How do you fix this faucet? You fix it with a chainsaw. Nope, it's all gone. You know, so I didn't have any tools in my toolbox, and Bhakti Yoga gave me the tools that I needed in order to live, and that's where the living finally came. Because without that
Wow.
experience, I was not able to set those boundaries. I was not
That's so
able
deep.
to let people in. I was not able to go to the temple. I was not able to really work on all the things that were plaguing me, because I was the one who had been fighting God all the time. I was the one who was holding everything back and not letting myself in. And that was, for me, that was a huge deal.
Yeah, that's a huge
yeah,
realization, because that's
yeah.
kind of the essence and the key to have a spiritual life, to even be able to explore that. If we don't know that, then we're just still in our ego and self-will.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. And whether the ego is insecurity or, you know, or being arrogant, one or the other, which flip-flops all the time, right?
Yeah.
If we're not in that mood, like you just said, it's kind of like, you know, step 1, 2, 3, and 1, you know, when that doesn't happen, it kind of is difficult to really have, you know, to let anything happen in your life, you know.
Yeah.
Really
And I
good
thought
that
the
you
first
said,
time I had done that. But I really hadn't, you know. And that's the great thing about recovery, is that it's an ongoing process. And
yeah.
Kashava Swami, he has a thing with he says that spiritual learning is not linear. It's on a spiral.
Right.
And that you just work your way towards the center. It's people expect it to be. So every time that you're reading something, you can read the same thing over and over again in the Bhagavad Gita, and where you're at in your life, it has a completely different meaning. And
Right.
I really felt like that, like, you know, we're talking about step 4 and 5 before we're talking about step 3. Like, I really felt like that. Like, it's just, step 3 didn't happen to me until after I had gone through all the process. So I actually knew what it was. It's just weird.
But
Yeah.
you know what? See, this is so interesting. I know exactly what you're talking about. And for people who don't understand, and people coming from a bhakti lens, if you look at the journey of Arjuna and Krishna, and if you look at the journey of Arjuna, all these things were made clear from Krishna in the second chapter. But again, Krishna mentions this in the 10th chapter, over and over again, all of his opulences, who he is, what he does. It was because it was mentioned again. It was because Arjuna had another understanding. He knew it somehow in some level in the beginning, but then Arjuna understood it deeply. And then he was led right back to the end of the Bhagavad Gita, which is 1866, right?
Yeah.
In its essence of abandon all, you know, religion and just surrender unto me.
Yeah.
And that's with the first step. So it is not linear. It is
Yeah.
linear for us to work, to understand, and then we live through it, and we live through it in spirals. We, you know, sometimes we're, you know, my sponsor used to say to me, "What step are you on?" I'd have a problem, and I'd be like, this and this and this, and she'd be like, "Well, what step are you on? What step are you on that?" You know, so sometimes it would be a step 1, sometimes it would be a step 11, sometimes it would be, you know, it wasn't just linear. It's a fantastic point. Thanks for bringing that up.
I'm really glad you brought up 1866, because I talked about something in the beginning, and now's the time probably to talk about 1866. So that's
go into it.
This is the surrender thing. And so this is the heartbreaking portion of the story. So the guy that I came into AA with, he was married and had kids. And I noticed pretty early on that he was drinking. He was drunk
Again
during the meetings.
Shit.
And so as I'm getting further along in the recovery, he's still floundering. He's not getting chips. He's, you know, I'm on my 7th day, and I'm really feeling for the guy. And not just me, like, we're all trying to help him, because we can clearly see this is going down one road and there is no coming back. It's a one-way street. And this guy, if he doesn't get off this street, he's going to die. And
Crash
so
and die,
we're all trying to help him, because he's a great guy. He was a great guy. And I say that was because I chaired a meeting about surrender. I had read Rich Roll's book, and It was about surrendering. And at that
I didn't
time,
even know
in that
Ritual had a
meeting,
book.
you know, early in recovery, you know, the surrender thing was really, really difficult to do. And to surrender that it was you know, I was an alcoholic. And then eventually, you know, I was able to get over it within, once I saw the benefits of sobriety, I was able to surrender that I was able, you know, that I was an alcoholic, and it was very cut and dry. I don't want to be on the hood of this police car anymore. He
Yeah.
shared in the meeting that he could never surrender, that surrender is defeat. And it was all the things that you hear about when people are fighting the surrender. And he went on that one-way street and he didn't get off it. He passed away. He drank himself to death. And it was just heartbreaking. Absolutely.
And you guys
heartbreaking.
watched him
Oh.
slowly commit suicide.
One of the other guys found him. Oh, it's just horrible.
And
Absolutely.
he had a
horrible.
family?
Oh,
He had a
yeah, he had a
family?
family. Oh, they kicked him out of the house eventually. You know what I mean? He had young
Yeah, yeah.
kids, and his wife was like, I can't deal with this anymore. We had the same sponsor. He was like, I can't do this. I know where you're going. You either have to do this or we're done. And he did the hard boundary thing, talking about codependency, create the hard boundary. And, you know, I'm always here for you if you need me. And he just went his own way. And it's heartbreaking, this disease. And, you know, it's 6 years ago. I've been sober for 6 years. So thank you everyone at the BRG.
whoop.
Yes. So I just had that anniversary, and, you know, I think about him all the time. I think about all the things that I've been able to experience that, you know, he was not. And I remember being at that spot, not being able to surrender. And I think that that's very, very important, that you know, being able to surrender that I'm an alcoholic. And actually I still a little bit struggle on the spirituality end. I asked a question if you follow the Wisdom That Breeze channel, it's Maharaj's channel I've talked about a couple times. And his in the Wisdom That Breeze channel, he did a talk.
Wisdom of what? Breeze?
Wisdom That Breeze. That Breeze is his channel.
What does that mean?
I think
Breeze?
it's breeze. It's like it's a breath of fresh air. He talked
Like
about it early in one
breathes?
of his
Like
videos.
breathing? Breathes?
Yeah,
Or-
breeze.
Oh, okay. sorry, I didn't-
Breathes. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Wisdom that breathes.
But
Okay.
the Philly
sorry.
accent's tough. You know what I mean? How you guys doing?
How you guys doing?
Somebody give me some water.
I say water too. Actually, I say water.
I gotta go to the Acme.
Do you say water?
I do.
I do too, but that's a New York thing too. We say
Yeah.
water.
Yeah.
I don't say
But it's
say it. Say it.
WUDDER. Water.
Water. Yeah, I think it's WARDER.
Yeah,
Water.
that's in New York.
It's like-
Water.
Yeah, water. Okay, so go ahead. Sorry, we're off track.
Yeah. So I asked a question of him, and you know, we were talking about surrender was the topic, and I told him that, you know, for me to surrender that I was an alcoholic was relatively easy. Like, it took me a little bit to get over, but it was not. I knew that I had to surrender that I was an alcoholic. It was very easy once I got over that initial hump, and it's been that way ever since. But to surrender fully, to fully surrender, is a different story. Because I told him, I said, I feel like I'm a pizza slice away from
Ooh,
fully
a pizza
surrendering.
slice away. A
I'm
slice
like a pizza
away.
slice away. Like,
I
I'm like,
love
right-
that. A slice. Don't even say that though, because we can't get slices here, man. I want a slice. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna go get a slice later on.
Oh, I hate you.
Yeah. But you know, yeah, you can't get a slice in Germany, can you? Yeah. that's
Nah,
crazy.
I mean they have Pizza Hut here, which is like
Ugh.
I don't even know what that is. Like I think I've eaten Pizza Hut in my life maybe twice. I don't.
It's disgusting.
It's gross. It's just really gross. And then they have like some places who are like, yeah, slices of pizza, but it tastes like dog food. Actually, it's just
Yeah.
gross.
Yeah.
There's nothing like a New York or an East Coast slice. I mean,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Philly's got some pretty damn good slices too.
It does, but
You know.
my favorite is Pika's. Pika's to me is the bomb. That's my favorite pizza.
Where's
every time-
Pika's?
Pika's is in it used to be in West Philly. Then it was in Upper Darby, and it was like one of those places where it's like, you ever see like the mafia meetings where like they're all
they're all sitting
they're
around.
all sitting around the table, like the banquet hall and
Yeah.
all that stuff. It was like
Yeah.
going there. So to me,
Love
like
it.
every time you go there, it's like a treat. Like, you know what I mean? So
I
it's,
love
and
it.
now they open up another branch like 20 minutes from me. So, and they have like a completely unique pizza, but that's neither here
You
nor
know,
there.
no, this is great. This is like we're on like recovery and surrender. Now we're on slices of pizza at Pika's. I freaking love it.
It's I gotta take you there next time you're here. It's really,
Oh my God,
it's,
totally, please.
yeah, it's great. It's just, you know, I love those old school establishments that just don't
Oh my
exist
God, me
anymore.
too.
Yeah, like
I
the
know.
50s stuff, it's just all gone by the wayside, you know?
It's kind of sad actually that just sort of like dying. But I guess every kind of generation has that, like those certain things dying.
Yeah.
You know, every generation said it was so much better when I was a kid. You know, everyone said it.
I think there's
Although,
always nostalgia of things,
yeah,
and I think that the eventually younger generation, like they don't identify with any of that stuff because they don't know it, like
no,
because he just
yeah,
was
of
already
course.
gone by the time that they were, you know, younger. So
Yeah. You know, it's
yeah,
sad when I miss the States, like I go through phases, and this is like being bewildered by the material world, actually. This
Mhm.
is a really good time to fish, to kind of sew that in. You know, we get nostalgic about something that we're conditioned with. We get nostalgic about, you know, I get nostalgic about New York. And I want to go back home, you know, and this went on for years where I was like, I want to go home. I don't want to be here. I want to go home. I want to have my things. And then each time I went home, bits would disappear. Bits of my nostalgia, stores that were there were gone, clubs were gone, people were gone, people, places, and things were gone. And it died with my memory of wanting to have something in the material world. We're seeing how quick that just goes away, and the things that we long for, you know, in the material world, they just die, and we lament, and we hang on to things that aren't there, and we, you know, and that's like a huge learning process of like the letting go of the things that we think that comfort us.
yeah, and things that are early in recovery that are, you know, so
Mm,
important are totally like, no, I don't need to hang out with that person anymore. That was a huge
absolutely.
thing. Like, this
Oh
person's
God,
treating me like dog shit. I don't need to be with them anymore. Like, no, we're done. You
totally.
know? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think you're such a nice guy. I mean, I don't want to like bring this up, but I think you're just such a nice guy. And I think
Thank
a
you.
lot, if you get in touch with like the wrong people, they would like just take advantage of you.
Oh,
And that
totally.
pisses me off beyond belief. That pisses me off. I would love, like, that's where like my defender thing comes, where I'm like, I'm gonna punch you all if you do anything to Scott. I'm gonna kill you. You know, like.
So much of my codependency journey, and this is like a
Mm,
realization I've actually had within a, you know, I'd say probably within like the last 6 months, was that I had such a horrible opinion of myself and no self-confidence and no self-worth that I would always reach for the lowest hanging relationship fruit. Like I would always go for
yeah.
the easy pickings, thinking that I can control this person, I can manipulate this person into doing what I want, but really what they're doing is I'm being their doormat. And as
Wow.
I've been able to cut away into my, you know, as I get self-worth, I'm now able to look for initially, like,
The
okay,
fruit you
I had a
want.
therapist who was like, put yourself out there. Like, you have to do this. You have to get uncomfortable in sobriety. Like, you have with your social anxiety and your sobriety, you have to go out there. If something's uncomfortable, just keep doing it. And you're going to have a panic attack. And if you think that you're going to be so weird and burn a relationship, just leave. That's fine. But the next day, you got to get back on that bike and you got to keep going and just, you know, go for it. So, I now have a ability, like feel like I'm enough of a person that I can, when I get in front of people, I am able to see what I don't want. So I can get and be like, oh, you know what? These people really aren't for me. And that's okay. Like, that's not like an FU statement. Like I
Mm-hmm.
I
No,
now
I
know
get it.
what I want by opening
what
up
you-
my circle, opening up
Mhm.
myself, and being able to see what I don't want. And I don't want this from other people. I don't want to be around people who are drinking. Sorry, can't do it. That's cool. You do you,
Yeah, sure.
but I'm now at a point where I have enough self-worth that I can go and say, I can hang out with these people, or this
That's
group has a great
beautiful.
vibe, or this group doesn't. Like a
And,
perfect
and your life has totally improved, hasn't it?
Oh,
Because of that.
100%.
Has it not? Mm.
Since I've gone on the codependency journey, I can't tell you just how many things have just completely changed for me in such a good way. And to say that in the beginning, I was just so distraught because now I've taken early recovery. You're talking about early recovery. One guy was like, I was explaining this one guy, he had, I think, 30 years sober, and I was really depressed. He was saying, you lost your best friend. Like, yeah, it's going to hurt. Like, you lost your best friend. And that really was the case. Like, my best friend was alcohol and I lost it. So now I'm at a sober bottom place where I can feel everything. And that makes it way worse than when you're depressed and you're alcohol, you just numb it.
You can medicate it, yeah.
Yeah, just medicate it. Just put it away. Just put it away for another day. But really, what I'm doing is I'm making it worse. It's only getting worse, and it's still there. It's not going away. And even when you medicate it the next day, it just gets worse and worse and worse. But now I'm at a point where going on that codependency journey and going on that has been totally transformational. And I think a lot of it had to do with being able to open up myself, because now when I go to a Super Soul farm and there's a bunch of strangers, or if I go into a new temple and there's a bunch of strangers, I don't have this feeling like I need to leave right now. Like I need to leave. I got to get away. I now have enough self-worth where I can be like, this is working for me or it isn't working for me. If it's not working for me, I'm going to leave. And if it's working for me, I'm going to stay, or maybe I have to
Even
battle
if it's
through for a little bit.
And even if it's a little uncomfortable,
Exactly.
You have enough self-worth to understand, okay, this is something that's good for me. I might feel uncomfortable, but this is something that I can deal with the uncomfort or the discomfort until it becomes comfortable. And I just love that.
Right.
You want to be
And I
my
never
best
had
friend,
that.
Scott? Scott, you want to be my best friend?
Yes.
Can we be besties?
I thought I already was.
Yeah. Let's be besties.
Yes.
Pinky besties.
Yeah. But it's just been totally transformational for me. That's all I can say, is that, working through the codependency program and really just kind of unlocking those keys. And I think the foundation of having, an AA program really, really helped. I mean, was able to give me a foundation that I was able to see these patterns. And because I don't think if I just dropped right into a codependency program that I would have gotten it. It was only when I was able to see patterns that I was able to experience that. And I think that's the key. Once you see those patterns, you're able to tweak it. And even when we were working the ACA pattern, I mean, for me,
and that's like fourth and fifth step. So just so people know, that's fourth and fifth.
Yeah. I started working the ACA program and I found myself getting very resentful towards my father, because there's whole other backstory. We could do a whole podcast on me and daddy, but
we should actually. We'll do that one time.
Yeah, we'll do it. Daddy issues. Daddy issues.
Daddy issues. Daddy issues. Scott R. Part 1. Love it.
Yeah. Sorry, it's so funny.
Hysterical.
I totally lost my train of thought. I was
no worries, but it is funny.
Yeah, exactly.
You were talking about, what were we talking about? Oh, Jesus, Scott, I forgot too.
Yeah, I was started laughing so hard about the daddy issues thing.
I know, we do.
But
anyway,
yeah. But I mean, as I went through
ACA program.
So I was
realizing
I was getting more angry towards him.
Right.
This wasn't having the effect of me recovering from it. This was having the effect of me getting more angry at him.
Sure.
And me being unable to process, bring up more resentment that I already had. And that was not a good space for me to be in. And to stop, and then the codependency thing really,
Right.
this is where I need to be, because this is a codependent relationship. I feel the need that I need to control him. And this is, and it's not just that, it's, every girlfriend I've had, every relationship I've had, I've just been in this horrible codependent spiral,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we can only have, and that's the thing. This is what a lot of people think, like, oh, if I just, believe in God and do the things that I should do in God, and those things will disappear. Okay, ultimately, maybe, but until then, we need tangible things to work through in order to realize them, and then cleanse them, to purify ourselves in that way. And I think it's so important to have, look, if we can't, basically everybody's part and parcel of Krishna. If we can't have healthy relationships with other people who are in our lives, how are we going to have a healthy relationship with God? If we don't know anything different, we're not going to be able to have that pure relationship. We need to understand what pure relationship is. We need to understand that, and some of us need a program to take us through that. And I think that that's just so wonderful. And I'm so glad actually that you found your way, and that Bhakti Recovery Group could have, that was a facilitator in your path, something that really,
and finding my tribe, like you said, it's really about finding your tribe wherever your tribe's at. And I found my tribe, and I'm very, very grateful for that. 'Cause, I hope to see anybody, Sundays at 7, because it's we do a codependency video, and then we do Bhagavad Gita reading. And
that's so great. I wish I could make it, but for me,
no,
it's
like 1 a.m. What are you, crazy?
Yeah, I know. I wish I could come. I wish I could.
I'm not going to the Australian codependency meeting at 2 a.m. I'll tell you that. Like, I'm sure there's a great recovery there, but I need some Z's. That's not happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Scott. Well, let's do a part 2. I mean,
absolutely. Anytime.
Okay,
anytime.
Great.
Part 2, daddy issues.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna call it. Part 2, daddy issues. Part 2, daddy issue. That's it. It rhymes even.
Yeah.
All right, exactly. Scott.
Well, thank you so much, Jiva,
for taking time and telling us part of your story. It's so inspiring. I'm so happy that you are, on the right path, on the path that feels comfortable for you. You're a wonderful person. We all love you, and we're all happy you're here. And I thank you for your service in the Bhakti Recovery Group. I thank you for your stellar presence in the Bhakti Recovery Group, and I thank you for your boundaries. You have boundaries, and I've seen those boundaries, and I really love that. So good on you.
Well, thank you, Jiva, because that chair was a chair of misery, and it was just being sober and being alone was a horrible place to be. And I'm so thankful that this space exists, because if it didn't, I don't know where I'd be. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks.
And to everybody out there, one more thing. This is my old sponsor. I'm going to steal a line from him. He always end everything for, thanks for helping me get another day. So thanks for helping me get another day.
Thank you for helping me get another day, Scott. All right. See you next time, Haribo. Remember, you heard it here. This concludes another episode. Thanks for listening. In order for me to serve this community to the best of my ability, I welcome feedback. Please write your feedback at bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. That's bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. Also, please don't forget to follow and give us a 5-star rating. Share this with family and friends. If you'd like to join our Bhakti Recovery community, or just find out what we're all about, please visit our website at www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. That's www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. There are no dues or fees, and we meet daily. If you or someone you know is struggling with addictions and/or associated behaviors, you will find links in our show notes to various 12-step programs. Nobody seeking recovery need ever be alone again.
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to to turn to God.